Every year, at the exact same moment, millions of people around the world pause their lives and make a silent promise to themselves. Sometimes it's whispered, sometimes it's written down, sometimes it's typed into a notes app that will never be opened again. A promise that begins with the same words almost every time. This year, I will be different. And what's fascinating is not that people fail to keep these promises, it's that they keep making them. Again, and again, and again. If New Year's resolutions never worked, the tradition would have disappeared centuries ago. But it hasn't. It survives because something deeper than motivation is at play. Something psychological, something emotional, something quietly human. Because when someone makes a New Year's resolution, they're not really talking about habits. They're talking about identity. They're talking about who they believe they are right now, and who they're afraid they might become if nothing changes. What most people never realize is that New Year's resolutions are not acts of discipline. They are acts of hope disguised as plans. And hope is a powerful thing, but it's also fragile. Here's the first uncomfortable truth. People don't make resolutions because January 1st is special. They make them because time itself feels like it's running out. Psychologists call this the temporal landmark effect. When we cross a boundary in time, like a new year, our brain creates a psychological separation between our past self and our future self. It's why January feels clean, untouched, forgiving. Your past mistakes feel like they belong to someone else, someone older, someone less aware, someone you're ready to outgrow. So when someone says, "This year will be different," what they're really saying is, "I'm tired of being the person I've been." And that thought carries both relief and fear. Relief, because change suddenly feels possible. Fear, because change also means responsibility. Now here's where it gets interesting. Studies consistently show that most New Year's resolutions fail within weeks, sometimes days. And yet, people are not foolish for making them. In fact, making a resolution actually improves short-term well-being. People feel lighter, more optimistic, more in control. The problem isn't the resolution. The problem is what people think a resolution is supposed to do. Most people believe a resolution is a contract with the future. But psychologically, it's more like a confession to the present. I am not okay with how things are. And that admission matters. But here's the hidden pattern. People don't abandon resolutions because they lack willpower. They abandon them because the resolution was never aligned with their emotional reality. Think about how resolutions are usually framed. Exercise more, eat better, save money, be productive, be calm, be better. They sound logical, clean, responsible. But the brain does not change through logic alone. The brain changes through emotion, meaning, and perceived identity. When someone says, "I want to work out every day," what they often mean is, "I want to feel confident again," or "I want to stop avoiding mirrors," or "I want to feel respected." And if the emotional need beneath the resolution is never addressed, the behavior collapses. This is why people don't fail at resolutions. Resolutions fail at understanding people. There's another layer most discussions never touch. Guilt. New Year's resolutions often come from guilt disguised as ambition. Guilt about time wasted. Guilt about potential unused. Guilt about becoming comfortable instead of courageous. Guilt is a dangerous fuel. It burns hot, but not long. In the first week of January, guilt can make someone wake up early, plan meals, download apps, and swear this time is different. But guilt doesn't sustain identity change. It creates pressure, and pressure creates avoidance. Eventually, missing one day feels like failure, and failure feels personal. So people quit, not because they don't care, but because caring hurts too much when perfection becomes the standard. Here's a psychological paradox that explains so much. The more someone ties a resolution to their worth as a person, the faster they abandon it. Why? Because every small slip stops being a data point and starts being a verdict. "I missed a day" quietly turns into, "I always mess this up." And the brain, wired to avoid emotional pain, chooses escape over effort. This is why perfectionism and New Year's resolutions are secretly connected. Many people don't resolve to change because they believe they can. They resolve because they believe they should. And should is heavy. Now let's talk about identity. because this is where everything shifts. Psychological research shows that behavior change sticks when people stop focusing on outcomes and start focusing on identity. Not "I will lose weight," but "I am someone who takes care of their body." Not "I will save money," but "I am someone who respects my future self." But here's the part no one likes to admit. Identity change feels uncomfortable because it threatens familiarity. Even unhealthy patterns can feel safe simply because they're known. Your brain doesn't crave happiness as much as it craves predictability. So when someone makes a resolution, part of their mind wants growth and another part wants safety. That internal conflict is exhausting. And most people interpret that exhaustion as failure when it's actually evidence of transformation trying to happen. Another reason resolutions fail is because people expect motivation to feel stable. It never is. Motivation is emotional weather. It changes hourly. What carries people forward is not motivation, it's meaning. People who succeed with resolutions don't wake up every day excited. They wake up anchored to a reason that feels bigger than discomfort. And here's something rarely said out loud. Many people don't actually want the change they say they want. They want the feeling they imagine comes after the change, without letting go of the habits that numb them now. That doesn't make them weak, it makes them human. Comfort is seductive, especially when life already feels heavy. This is why January is such a powerful month emotionally. It's not just a new year, it's a mirror. A mirror that asks, are you becoming who you said you wanted to be? And mirrors are confronting. That's why people swing between extreme discipline and complete avoidance during this time. One moment they feel unstoppable, the next, deeply tired. There's a psychological term for this too. It's called the false fresh start, when people believe that a single moment in time will erase years of emotional patterns. Change doesn't work like that. Real change is quiet, it's uneven, it's often boring, and that clashes with how resolutions are culturally sold: loud, dramatic, total, all or nothing. But the human nervous system doesn't evolve through pressure. It evolves through safety and repetition, which leads to a hard truth. Most resolutions are too big emotionally, not too small. They ask someone to become a completely different person overnight, without acknowledging the grief of letting go of who they've been. Because yes, there is grief in change. Grief for old routines, old coping mechanisms, old versions of yourself that got you through difficult times, even if they no longer serve you. And when that grief isn't acknowledged, the brain resists. So what separates the people who quietly change from those who repeat the cycle every year? It's not discipline, it's self-relationship. People who sustain change talk to themselves differently. They don't say, I failed. They say, what made this hard? Curiosity replaces judgment, and curiosity keeps people engaged longer than shame ever could. There's a fascinating statistic most people never hear. People who frame resolutions as experiments rather than commitments are significantly more likely to follow through. An experiment invites learning. A commitment demands perfection, and perfection suffocates progress. Now here's where this becomes deeply personal. Many people don't quit their resolutions. They quietly stop believing they deserve the result. After a few attempts, something shifts internally. Hope becomes cautious, then skeptical, then silent. I've tried before. Those 4 words carry so much weight. And yet, the fact that someone still feels the pull to try again, year after year, reveals something beautiful. The desire to grow doesn't disappear. It just waits for a safer way to be expressed. What if New Year's resolutions were never meant to be strict rules? What if they were invitations? Invitations to pay attention, to question patterns, to listen to discomfort instead of numbing it. Because the people who make resolutions aren't broken, they're aware. Awareness hurts before it heals, and that pain is often mistaken for weakness, but it's actually the beginning of wisdom. In a moment, I want to explore something even deeper. Why some people unconsciously choose resolutions they know they won't keep, and how that protects them emotionally more than it harms them. There's a quiet reason some people choose resolutions they almost know they won't keep. And it's not laziness, it's protection. When a goal is unrealistic, failing doesn't threaten the core of who you are. It becomes proof that the goal was too extreme, not that you are incapable. In a strange way, impossible resolutions act like emotional armor. They let people try without risking real vulnerability. Because realistic change asks a dangerous question. What if I try honestly, and still struggle? That question scares people more than failure ever could. So instead, the brain chooses familiar disappointment over uncertain growth. At least familiar disappointment hurts in predictable ways. This is why many resolutions are performative. They sound impressive. They look good when spoken aloud. They earn nods and encouragement, but they're not meant to be lived. They're meant to signal intention without requiring deep internal rewiring. And again, this isn't a flaw. It's a survival strategy. Human beings evolved to avoid emotional risk. Social rejection, identity loss, and uncertainty register in the brain as threats. So when someone says, "I'll change everything this year," part of their mind is chasing transformation, while another part is bracing for impact. That internal tug-of-war drains energy, which explains another overlooked truth. People often don't quit resolutions because they lack discipline. They quit because they're emotionally exhausted from trying to become someone they don't yet feel safe being. Safety matters more than motivation. This is why change sticks best when it feels boring, small, and almost unimpressive. Because boring feels safe. There's a study that found people are more consistent with habits they don't emotionally attach to outcomes. When success isn't tied to identity, the nervous system stays calm. Calm brains repeat behaviors. Anxious brains avoid them. Now think about how New Year's resolutions are framed culturally. They're public, announced, shared, compared. Public goals increase pressure. Pressure activates fear. Fear reduces flexibility. So people rigidly push themselves for a short time, then collapse. And afterward comes the story. "I just don't have discipline. I'm not built like that. I always mess this up." Those stories hurt more than the original failure, because now the issue isn't behavior, it's identity. Once someone believes change isn't for them, they stop experimenting. And when experimentation stops, growth slows. But here's the part almost no one talks about. Many people who fail their resolutions are actually changing in invisible ways. They become more aware of patterns. They notice resistance sooner. They start questioning habits instead of blindly repeating them. That awareness doesn't show up on a calendar, but it matters. Change is rarely linear. It's circular. People revisit the same goals not because they're stuck, but because each time they're seeing them from a slightly more honest place. That's why someone can attempt the same resolution 5 years in a row, and suddenly, in year 6, it clicks. Not because the goal changed, because the relationship with themselves did. Another psychological layer here is grief for imagined futures. Every resolution carries a quiet goodbye. Goodbye to who you thought you'd already be by now. Goodbye to timelines you expected to meet. Goodbye to certainty. People don't talk about that grief, but it lingers. And unprocessed grief drains motivation. This is why compassion matters more than discipline. Compassion allows people to stay present with discomfort instead of running from it. And staying present is the real skill behind lasting change. Now let's talk about the future self, because resolutions are essentially messages sent forward in time. When someone makes a resolution, they're imagining a future version of themselves who has more energy, more control, more clarity. Psychologically, that future self often feels like a stranger, and the brain struggles to sacrifice for strangers. Research shows people are more likely to act in ways that benefit their future self when they feel emotionally connected to them. When the future feels real, not abstract. This is why vague resolutions fail. Be healthier doesn't create an emotional bridge, but have the energy to play with my children does. Emotion creates continuity between present and future identity. Without that bridge, resolutions collapse under the weight of now. There's also the issue of self-trust. Many people secretly don't trust themselves to follow through, and self-trust isn't built by making promises. It's built by keeping small ones. Every time someone sets an enormous goal and abandons it, self-trust erodes. But every time someone chooses something small and completes it, self-trust grows quietly. That's why the most powerful resolutions are almost invisible. They don't impress anyone. They don't transform lives overnight, but they accumulate. And accumulation is how identity actually shifts. Now consider this. The people who criticize New Year's resolutions the most often misunderstand their purpose. Resolutions aren't guarantees. They're signals. Signals that someone is paying attention to their life. Signals that discomfort is being acknowledged instead of ignored. And paying attention is always the first step toward change. Even if nothing sticks this year, the noticing matters. noticing patterns, noticing avoidance, noticing what feels heavy, because awareness is never wasted. There's also a softer truth. Some people don't need to change as much as they think. They need to rest. In a culture obsessed with constant improvement, stillness is mistaken for stagnation. Some resolutions come from burnout, not inspiration, and burnout cannot be healed with more pressure. When someone resolves to do more while already depleted, the nervous system rebels. Sometimes the bravest resolution is to do less, to heal, to stabilize, to stop chasing a version of success that was never emotionally sustainable. But those resolutions don't sound impressive, so they're rarely celebrated. Yet they're often the ones that save people. Here's a reframe worth holding on to. What if the real purpose of New Year's resolutions isn't success, but self-honesty? What if they exist to surface what's been quietly bothering us all year? The dissatisfaction, the longing, the unspoken wishes. In that sense, even failed resolutions have done their job. They've revealed where attention is needed. And attention, when sustained gently, becomes change. The people who grow aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who don't turn failure into an identity. They don't ask, what's wrong with me? They ask, what is this trying to teach me? That question keeps the door open, and growth requires open doors. So if you're someone who makes New Year's resolutions every year, understand this. You are not repetitive. You are persistent. You are responding to an inner signal that something matters. And that signal doesn't mean you're behind. It means you're alive to your own potential. The quiet tragedy isn't failing resolutions. It's stopping yourself from dreaming new ones because you're afraid of disappointment. Hope, even when fragile, is not foolish. It's evidence of resilience. And maybe the most human resolution of all isn't to become someone else, but to finally learn how to stay with yourself long enough to change.